Stay with us. We're live in Kumasi as well, where the fire ravaged shops at the Kejetia market. We'll give you updates on that. We're speaking to the fire service and also some of the traders whose shops were affected by this latest inferno there. Comes at a time when already the region has recorded hundreds of fire outbreaks since the beginning of the year. We'll get into that here on Ghana Tonight. Let's hear from you as always. You're an integral part of the conversation. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and Twitter. Let's get talking. We're going to be very heavy on this development in court earlier today with respect to that case of defamation that Anas Armia Anas brought against Kennedy Agyapong. Now, the ruling by the judge has some very strong words in there, which has generated a lot of conversation. But we'll have some lawyers joining us as well while I put up the details in this ruling to you, our viewers out there. Stay with us. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs. An Accra High Court has dismissed a defamation suit filed by investigative journalist Anas Armia Anas against Asin Central Member of Parliament Kennedy Agyapong. Presiding Judge Eric Barr, while dismissing the case, awarded a 50,000 cedis cost against investigative journalist Anas Armia Anas.
Anas's humiliation in this country, nobody, no citizen of this country should go through like that. I tell you today, the 50,000, I don't need it. I give it to him, but he should live with his conscience. And with this judgment, God is also going to give his judgment.
A member of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament, an MP for Ebuakwa South, has descended heavily on the military for brutalizing innocent civilians, and a chairman, Samuel Atachia, contributing to a statement on security brutality, means no words in describing the act as despicable.
I have never seen any absurdity in my life. That if you can't find a killer, be the innocent. And in so do you find a killer. We can celebrate this kind of, with the greater balance in this democratic dispensation we have. And we are craving the indulgence of those who are supposed to investigate this matter. They should go about and make an example out of some of these situations.
The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, says the gold for oil policy has stabilized the exchange rate and will save the country some $4.8 billion annually. Speaking at a forum by the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company in Accra, he assured consumers of petroleum products that the price will decline further from the next pricing window of March 16.
Tomorrow we will see the decline in prices that we expect. This is remarkable. 2.5 months ago you are at 23 cedis per liter. Today you are at 12 cedis and falling. That is a good point.
Inflation fell for the second month in 2023, February, to 52.8% after a 19-month surge. Data by the Ghana School Service revealed that the Consumer Price Index for February 2023 was 168.7 relative to 110.4 for February 2022 using the linked series. This means that in the month of February 2023, the general price levels was 52.8%, higher than in February 2022. Ghanaian traditional musician Kin Ayusoba is hopeful of winning a Grammy for Ghana someday. He was speaking on 3FM Sunrise Morning Show with John Hughes.
Allah, what day?
Sunrise.
Because the way I see Lucky Guy went try, but he should come Ghana.
You should come home.
To work hard,
But
to bring songs.
can we trust you to bring it home for us?
Let's see.
Today, the victory is for the victims finance the people, the good people of this country that Anas has destroyed. All those people who were sacked from their jobs, the people who have died through Anas' illegal investigation should be compensated. Compensation is not enough. He has to apologize to his victims. And today, I say to Ghanaians that we have to be bold to speak the truth in this country.
The court awarded the MP a 50,000 Ghana cedi cost, but he says that pales into insignificance compared to what he insists is the damage that Anas has caused several people.
What they have gone through, Anas's humiliation in this country, nobody, no citizen of this country should go through like that. I tell you today, the 50,000, I don't need it. I give it to him, but he should live with his conscience. And with this judgment, God is also going to give his judgment.
Lori Dwasari, TV3 News, Accra.
Today, the victory is for the victims of Anas, the people, the good people of this country that Anas has destroyed. All those people who were sacked from their jobs, the people who have died through Anas' illegal investigation should be compensated. Compensation is not enough. He has to apologize to his victims. And today, I say to Ghanaians that we have to be bold to speak the truth in this country.
The court awarded the MP a 50,000 Ghana cedi cost, but he says that pales into insignificance compared to what he insists is the damage that Anas has caused several people.
What they have gone through, Anas's humiliation in this country, nobody, no citizen of this country should go through like that. I tell you today, the 50,000, I don't need it.
On the Asin Central MP. Things happened in court earlier today, and the reactions that have come through after the Accra High Court dismissed this suit by Anas Harimera Anas against Kennedy Agyapong, and the questions that have been raised and the issues that's coming up. In fact, this case goes as far back as 2018, this defamation case. Anas went to court seeking 25 million cedis in damages for defamation against Kennedy Agyapong. The judge on this case, actually, in his ruling, is asking fundamental questions, and it's always been on the modus operandi and this issue of entrapment versus undercover journalism. That is what underlines, if you read about 65 pages of this Justice Eric Barr's ruling or the judgment on this case, it comes back to that particular question, which many people who have questioned Anas's own modus of investigation raised. But bear in mind, the president said he was going to use that principle to fight corruption in this country. Okay? Now, this development now has got many talking about how this is going to impact on investigative journalism, because the end result of Anas's work is exposing corruption. Okay, we'll look at both sides. But look, this is a 65-page judgment. We cannot go through all of it. And I'm going to just put that on the screen for you. All of this, it's quite a lot. And the volumes that we're having to deal with, quite a lot of it. We have the full ruling. In fact, the 65-page judgment, we have it. That's the pages of which you see on the screen there, quite a lot of it. We'll get into the details of it. But what we intend to do going forward is to serialize aspects of this ruling so that you can also follow quite closely. But this is what Justice Eric Barr said in part. In that 65-page ruling, we just put a few pages on the screen. He says that such a conduct is legally and morally wrong. It is evil. Based on the evidence, the defendant was justified in calling, that is Anas evil, criminal, corrupt, blackmailer, and an extortionist. He also goes on to say, this is the judge's ruling, his words captured in the ruling. He says, I considered it established that plaintiff blackmails people, that is, in this case, Anas blackmails people he desires to destroy, probably his enemies or the enemies of his friends or partners or persons loaded with cash, whether legitimate or illegitimate, as the suspect in the gold scam case by catching them on tape. Justice Barr goes on to say this as well. Really said the tape is then shown to them. The tape on those who pay up are shelved, but those who refuse or are not able to pay then are helped to the full glare of the public for reputational damage. It goes on and on. In fact, it raises all of these issues. This is in the ruling, as a matter of fact. You would get the details of it as well as we go on. If you go on to 3news.com, we'll publish it. But essentially, this is what he concludes. This is where the emphasis is, that Justice Barr's conclusion and all of this, that Anas's conduct in his ruling is legally and morally wrong. It is evil based on the evidence. The defendant, that's Agyapong, was justified in calling Anas evil, criminal, corrupt, blackmailer, and extortionist. Okay. But all of this then raises all of these issues that we're going to get into, especially with the law. And we would have the lawyers joining us. And bear in mind, Tiger IPI has also issued a statement on this ruling by Justice Eric Barr. We will get into the Tiger IPI statement as well, because they raise fundamental issues which they say is a travesty of justice, and why the courts did not take into consideration all of those concerns as well. The allegations of Anas being a murderer, and they make the point that, look, there's no evidence to that effect. The court did not admit that. We'll find out if they intend to appeal this ruling. But apart from this, the vice president is also making a claim about the Gold for Oil program. I want you to take a listen to him. Take a look.
The prices of fuel will go up and will come down. But what we expect to see under the Gold for Oil policy is more stability in the pricing and also savings in foreign exchange. There's more to come. This is the third month of the operation of the policy. Just the third month. Some people said it will not work. Ghana doesn't have enough gold. How can you say that? We've been mining this gold for 200 years. They keep taking it out, and it cannot work for us. It doesn't make sense. There are people who are very disappointed that it is working, but bleeding is allowed.
That's the vice president there. Says, tomorrow, it is indeed the case. The second pricing window for the month of March starts tomorrow. And in fact, there have been projections that prices of petrol and diesel will actually go down. But is it because of the Gold for Oil deal alone? Because the vice president makes that point, that because of the program, we're going to see a reduction in the prices of petrol and diesel. Here's what we observed. From December 2022 to date, the price of crude oil on the world market has actually been reducing. And bear in mind, there are three factors that influences the prices on petroleum products at the pumps in this country. That's the price of crude oil on the world market, the taxes and levies as well on the price build-up. The third one is the currency differential. That's how well the cedi is doing against the dollar, our major trading currency. We've seen a stability of the cedi against the dollar over the period, at least from January to date. And this is how much crude oil was selling on the world market, and that's in December, $86.96. $86.96, according to Bloomberg. Now take a look at this. In January, it was reduced to $83.10. In February, it went down to $82.45. Today, when we checked on Bloomberg, you can check it out yourself, bloomberg.com, and you go to the natural resource or metals. Today, as of this evening, a barrel of crude oil is selling at $73.97. There was a reduction of 3.48% over the last 24 hours. And this as a result of a number of things happening on the world market. I mean, the geopolitics and this Russia-Ukraine war, and countries not now doing business with Russia, deciding not to buy Russia's crude oil, all of that is playing out on the geopolitics on the world market. You see the crude oil going down. What we've seen as well with the taxes and levies, it hasn't changed that much, apart from that negligible increase in the UPPF and the boss margin in December, sometime last year. So there hasn't been any significant reduction whatsoever as we have seen. But the volumes that have come through as a result of this gold for oil deal, is it enough to have a significant impact on the prices of petroleum products at the pumps? We'll find out from the NPA, because we understand 3 consignments of diesel have come in so far, and then 2 consignments or shipments of petrol have come in so far between January and now. And there's a 3rd shipment of petrol which is yet to be offloaded as well. We'll find all the volumes. The National Petroleum Authority head of pricing and economics is going to be joining us. We'll get into the details of these and more here on Ghana Tonight. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
For us, the people, the good people of this country that Anas has destroyed. All those people who were sacked from their jobs, the people who have died through Anas' illegal investigation should be compensated. Compensation is not enough. He has to apologize to his victims. And today, I say to Ghanaians that we have to be bold to speak the truth in this country.
The court awarded the MP a 50,000 Ghana cedi cost, but he says that pales into insignificance compared to what he insists is the damage that Anas has caused several people.
What they have gone through, Anas's humiliation in this country, nobody, no citizen of this country should go through like that. I tell you today, the 50,000, I don't need it. I give it to him, but he should live with his conscience. And with this judgment, God is also going to give his judgment.
Lord Edwasari, TV3 News, Accra.
Well, so that's what happened in court today, and that's what has got a number of you reacting to this on social media. We'll get into some of the comments that some of you have actually posted on this. That's on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. But let's go on to the telephone now. And Captain Nkrabea Efa Date, retired, is a private legal practitioner. He's joining us on the telephone shortly. We'll have another lawyer also joining us here on Ghana Tonight to share his thoughts on this development in court. Now, we have excerpts of the Tiger IPI statement as well, which they have issued. In fact, that's going to be on your screen shortly. This is a statement coming through from Anas's company, Tiger IPI. The heading is a statement on the judgment of Justice Eric Barr in the case of Anas Ermia Anas versus Kennedy Agyapong, suit number GJ892/18. Now, Captain Retired Nkrabea Efa Date, thank you so much for joining us on Ghana Tonight. First off, the Tiger IPI statement, which we'll put on the screen shortly, makes the reference to the description of the court's ruling as a travesty of justice, and the fact that for them, to the extent that the court traveled through the hands of 3 judges, with Justice Barr being the latest assigned to the case, and they say it is at the express instance of Kennedy Agyapong. I mean, I wanted to just touch base with this and your thoughts on this particular point that Tiger IPI makes, that this judge was appointed or assigned to the case at the express instance of Kennedy Agyapong. Captain Nkrabea Efa Date.
I am surprised that Tiger Eye is talking like this, because when it comes to placement of cases before the court, there is nobody who has control over it. It is done by the office of the Chief Justice and the Judicial Secretary. And so it is very, very, very unfair and unrealistic for Tiger Eye to accuse Kennedy Agyapong as having manipulated the system in such a way as to get a judge who will have a sympathetic hearing for Kennedy Agyapong, to the disadvantage of Tiger Eye. I believe Tiger Eye is being paid in his own coin. And since Tiger Eye knows how to manipulate the system, he is complaining that the system has been manipulated against him. But that is most untrue. Most untrue. And so personally, I'll dismiss the Tiger Eye statement as self-serving
I see.
not correct.
But Captain Krabi and Father, it would be unfair to say that Tiger IPI knows how to manipulate the system. I mean, do you have evidence to back that claim that they know how to manipulate the system?
Well, the only evidence I have is that Tiger Eye has been bombarding the eardrums of Ghanaians with so-called investigations and so-called findings and so-called reports that has led several people to untimely graves and lost their jobs. And for me, I have no sympathy for Tiger Eye. Not one bit. Because Tiger Eye, who is Tiger Eye? Is it not Anas Aremiya, Anas and his cronies? And are they saints? Can they tell me that they have not committed any sin? You remember the story of Jesus Christ when he said, "He who has not sinned before should cast the first stone." Tiger Eye, who is Tiger Eye? And you are claiming that you have been defamed. It is not serious.
Well, but if I make reference to the statement by Tiger IPI again, because they say, and I quote, that throughout the trial, Kejetia displayed absolute disdain and disrespect of the court and the lawyers of Anas, but all attempts to cite him for contempt hit a dead end. That's what you see on the screen. Essentially, they're questioning the conduct of the court in all of this. Captain Krabi Fadate.
I am surprised that Tiger Eye is talking like this, because Tiger Eye and his team of lawyers should know that if a judge makes any ruling, any decision, and you are not comfortable with it, you have the right to appeal to the Court of Appeal or to a higher bench. So if they have kept quiet all this while and they have slept on their rights and judgment has been given against them, it is too late today to complain about the system, because this is the very system that they have been assaulting almost for the past 3 years, trying to come out with baseless accusations against high court judges and trying to run them down.
I see.
Tiger Eye should shut up.
Well, you're saying they should shut up, but they also, well, I'm sure, expressing their rights to speak, and that's why they've put out this statement as well, an indication of a decision to, as it were, challenge the position of the court. But they describe this as a travesty of justice and very inimical to the administration of justice and fairness. I'm sure you've seen this statement, Captain Krabi Fadate. It's actually on point 3 of this statement by Tiger IPI. They say this ruling and the outcome of it by Justice Eric Barr is a travesty of justice. Captain.
Every lawyer will tell you that the basic right of a party in a court case, that is to appeal against the decision, that right is inviolate. That right is fundamental. So I'm expecting that if the High Court judge has given judgment against Anas Aremiya Anas in favor of Kennedy Agyapong, or if in the view of Anas and his team of lawyers, the judge's decision is erroneous or is faulty, the solution is not to issue a statement condemning the judgment, but just to proceed to the Court of Appeal and file an appeal, state your grounds of the appeal, and then contend or fight the judgment. Because all these allusions to the fact that Anas has not committed any murder and has not shown any collusion whatsoever with the murder of anybody, it's neither here nor there. When you issue a statement in the air, it stands there just like that. It does not resolve you. It does not absolve you. It does not clear you of the smear or the debt that has been poured on you. Your best place to acquit yourself of any erroneous or false accusation is to go to court. And initially, Anas took this matter to court because he wanted to clear his name. Now, the court, in its judgment, says that Kennedy Agyapong is not guilty of defamation, and so he can go scot-free. If they are not comfortable with the decision, it's simple. File a notice of appeal and pursue the appeal. But to stand outside with your lawyers and issue statements and say that Anas is not guilty of murder and the judgment is a travesty of justice and inimical this and that and this and that, is neither here nor there. It's neither here nor there. The fact remains that according to the records of Ghanaian legal jurisprudence, Anas has failed in his bid to commit Kennedy Agyapong for a defamatory suit. That's as simple as that.
I see.
He should take steps. If I'm Anas' lawyer, I would suggest to him that we should appeal against the judgment immediately and keep your mouth shut. It's as simple as that.
Well, but Captain, you cannot also overlook the impact, of his work. Beyond everything that's happened now with this specific case, his target of exposing, or the objective of exposing corruption amongst the high and mighty, and then also fighting corruption, cannot also be understated in the larger scheme of things when you're talking about his work and his impact, can you?
I am very happy about the judgment because the only body established by law to fight corruption in Ghana, or for that matter in the country or anywhere else, is the police service. If you have allegations of corruption, go make a factual report or a complaint to the police CID. Let them investigate and take the culprits to court and accuse them. But if you arm yourself with gadgets and you call yourself a private investigator and you invade the privacy of my house or my office and you tempt me with documents and monies and so on, and then you come out with a shady report saying that you are an investigative journalist. Personally, I may be wrong. Many people may not agree with me, but personally, I think that is way outside the law, and the law should not support, the law should not promote, the law should not encourage this type of undercover journalism. No. If you are a journalist and I Krabia, even though I'm not a trained journalist, I'm a journalist. I write in the media regularly. If you are a journalist, report what you see to the police so that the investigations may lead to prosecution. But not that you do your private investigation and you release a report and your victims have no right of reply. They cannot defend themselves. Look at my very good personal friend, Justice Kejetia, a high court judge in Tamale, a young man, not yet 50 years. His whole life has been dislocated just because of a bogus report. What do you mean by fighting corruption through the ANAS method?
Well, but you see,
it's not correct.
well, that's what the president said. Well, if you say it's not correct, the president actually endorsed this. In fact, he said that's what he's going to use to fight corruption, the ANAS principle. I don't think Captain Krabia Fadatet is right to say that, these persons who are captured in there are also not given the right of hearing. I mean, ANAS himself doesn't have the powers to prosecute. He doesn't have prosecutory powers. So after exposing that, then the appropriate agencies take it up to then act on the outcome of his undercover investigations. That's what happens.
Well, if His Excellency the President has made that statement, it's not a secret cow. It's not a secret statement. It's not an unassailable statement. But His Excellency may have that view. But me personally, as Krabia Fadatet, I don't agree with ANA's method of fighting corruption. No.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. Captain Krabia Fadatet, retired private legal practitioner. I appreciate your time on this. This is Ghana Tonight. A number of you commenting on this, and we'll get into your comments as well, and also the various aspects of this conversation and how things are playing out. It's actually brought up the question about entrapment and what some others' views are on ANAS's modus operandi. But stay with us here on Ghana Tonight. These are issues that we're going to be getting into a lot more on this. And there's a statement that's just coming through from Agyapong as well. We have a copy of that statement coming through not too long ago. We'll put it on the screen shortly. And right now, this is the details of the statement from Agyapong. He says, and I quote, it talks about the happenings in court today and the ruling by Justice Eric Barr, and why, in his view, in fact, responding to a number of the issues that Tiger IPI also raised in their statement as well. And that you will find shortly on the screen, and also the details as we have it. In fact, as I indicated earlier, this is a 65-page ruling, and we have just pages of it, which we'll splash on the screen shortly, just to let you know. And what we put out earlier is just the beginning of the process of serializing the details of this, the 65-page ruling on this case, and what the judge said. A summary of what the judge said in some of the pages as we put out there. This is it. But the judge also made certain conclusive statements based on the evidence and how the case transpired in court. That is what God, first of all, says this, that this is the Tiger IPI statement, and let's see what the judge also said in there, which warranted this particular response from Tiger IPI. That's the detail that we have so far and how the case has played out. Stay with us here. We'll get into some of the reactions as well coming through. But the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is saying that the Gold for Oil program has stabilized the exchange rate and would save the country some $4.8 billion annually. He was speaking at a forum by the Bulk Oil Storage and Transport that's BOST in Accra, and assuring consumers of petroleum products that the price would decline further from the next pricing window tomorrow, March 16. Take a look at the Vice President.
Quotation company BOST.
the prices of fuel will go up and will come down. But what we expect to see under the gold for oil policy is more stability in the pricing and also savings in foreign exchange. There's more to come. This is the third month of the operation of the policy. Just the third month. Some people said it will not work. Ghana doesn't have enough gold. How can you say that? We've been mining this gold for 200 years. They keep taking it out, and it cannot work for us. It doesn't make sense. There are people who are very disappointed that it is working, but bleeding is allowed.
The Deputy Minister of Energy.
As the Vice President, well, but take a look at this. This is what we know so far in terms of the finished products that have come in, petrol, diesel, that have come in under this Gold for Oil program since we started in January. And I'll show it to you, and whether this is enough to have any significant impact on the market in terms of the total volumes of petrol and diesel that we as a country consume. In fact, the last time we checked from the NPA, they say that we consume about 133,000 metric tons of petrol and 135,000 metric tons of diesel every month, right? But take a look at this. In January, the diesel, 41,000 metric tons of diesel came in under this Gold for Oil program. In February, we had diesel petrol consignments that's coming in, as the shipment coming in, 30,000 metric tons of petrol and 42,000 metric tons of diesel came in under the program. That means we exchange gold or cash for this shipment that came in. In March, the first couple of weeks in March, we had diesel petrol shipment also coming in under the Gold for Oil program, 37,000 metric tons of petrol and 42,000 metric tons of diesel came in under the program. Bear in mind that every month we as a country consume a little over 133,000 metric tons of petrol and about 135,000 metric tons of diesel. So with this in mind, would all these metric tons that's coming under the program have any significant impact on the pricing of petroleum products at the pumps? That's a simple question that we're asking. And Ben Boakye is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. He's been reacting to this position as was put out by the Vice President that the prices of petroleum products that will go down tomorrow, as expected, is because of the Gold for Oil program. Take a look.
I'm in shock, really. I'm hearing what the Vice President was saying. I mean, unless you are looking at something else, but if you're really analyzing the industry and how the pricing mechanics works, you would note that it has nothing to do with gold for oil. We are seeing prices on the international market drop, to today about $73 per barrel of Brent and even 66 for WTI. And indications are that it is even going to drop further. These have implications for petroleum products on the market, and that is what is forcing prices down against the fact that the cedi has been stable for the past couple of weeks, if not months. So these are the fundamental drivers of the price that we are seeing. And I think it's a general attitude that even if we see price go up tomorrow, they'll have something to say. They say, oh, that one is international price. But when it's coming down, it's gold for oil. That is not what we do. We analyze policy based on the drivers, the factors that underpin, the occurrence on the market. I think you can blame them when you're a politician or a pedestrian who doesn't understand how the industry works. But if you understand the mechanics and what influences price, you have to analyze them based on those. But the point I was making substantially is that it is not oil, gold for oil that has brought down the price. And that is a fact. If you listen to any industry watcher beyond the government itself who is just trying to communicate to the uninitiated that it is because of the gold for oil. But those of us who are analyzing the market knows that few months ago, oil price on the international market was around $120 per barrel. It is halved, all right? Are we seeing half price on our market. All right. A few months ago, the cedi was almost hitting 15 to the dollar. Is that what we have today? So the circumstances have changed. And always when you're doing analysis, and it's not just politics, you have to look at the facts on the issue and then be able to put issues as they are. But even let's look at the go for oil itself, all right, and what it has done. In the past 3 months, they have brought in 3 cargoes, 40 metric tons, and then another 40, and then 35 metric tons.
Heads the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Let's go to the National Petroleum Authority because they're one of the major state agencies in this Gold for Oil program, apart from BOST. Ibrahim Abbas Tasunte is head of economic regulation at the National Petroleum Authority, connecting with us. Ibrahim, thank you so much for your time on Ghana Tonight. First of all, let's establish a few things. How many volumes of petrol and diesel have come in under this Gold for Oil program since we started in January?
So far, we have received 5 cargoes under the program. 3 of these cargoes are diesel and 2 are petrol. In January, we received 1 diesel cargo, which was about 41,000 metric tons. In the month of February, we received another diesel cargo, which was also about 42,000 metric tons. And in this month, we received another diesel cargo, which is about 42,000 metric tons as well. So since January, we've received 1 diesel cargo per month. For petrol, we've received 2 cargoes so far, and received 1 in February, and which was about 30,000 metric tons, and we received another in March, which was about 37,000 metric tons. So, but we have another cargo that has arrived, which is a petrol cargo, but it is here to berth and discharge. So it is at anchorage as we speak. So these are the cargoes we received under the program so far. So 5 cargoes have completed discharge.
I see.
And 1 cargo is at anchorage awaiting discharge.
Right, but in terms of the volumes of consumption, right, how much in terms of volumes of petrol and diesel, and confirm this for us, that we consume as a country, let's say every month, as compared to the 45,000 that you talked about that has come in, that is for petrol, and then the 37,000 for diesel?
So our monthly consumption of petrol is average about 133,000 metric tons of petrol per month. And we do about 135,000 metric tons of diesel a month. So if we look at what has come in January, the cargo that arrived, the diesel cargo was about 31% of diesel's consumption. In February, as I mentioned, we received 1 petrol cargo and 1 diesel cargo each in February. And for the petrol, that's about 22% of the petrol's consumption and about 31% of diesel's consumption. So averagely, we are looking at about 30% of the consumption of each of the products. So that's the percentage that these cargoes that have come in, it's about 30% of consumption per month.
I see. But have you been able to measure the impact of this particular program? I mean, there's Go for Oil program since its inception to date.
Yes, we have. So there's actually a mechanism for us to monitor the impact. It is for that reason why, if you remember, MPA mentioned that there's a criteria for the OMs that are participating. And this was because in a deregulated market, if you don't have a criteria like that, to be able to see who is lifting the product and be able to monitor, then you will not be able to tell the impact at the pumps. So it was for that reason why we came up with that mechanism. So if you look at the first cargo that arrived in January, the first diesel cargo, you'll remember that after Gulf, for example, took hold of their quantity, their diesel price at the time dropped from about 15.9 cedis per liter to about 15.25 cedis per liter, and that was because of the Gold for Oil.
Right.
That was because at the time, the price disparity between the Gold for Oil and the market prices was very huge. Since the February, when the other Gold for Oil cargoes came in, we've seen that it's also making the market prices become a bit more competitive in terms of product that was not imported under the Gold for Oil program. So the price differential between the Gold for Oil program and the imported product is not that huge like the very first cargo. So that's one impact we've seen, that the market prices are coming close to the good for oil prices. Aside that, we are also monitoring the OMCs that are lifting the good for oil product, as I said. One of the requirements for all of them is for them to assign an undertaking that once they are lifting gold for oil, they'll be able to prove that they've used a weighted average of the gold for oil price and the price from the other sources in determining their prices. As I mentioned earlier, the gold for oil currently is meeting just about 30% of our monthly consumption. So it is clear that the OMCs will have to lift their other products from other sources, and therefore, any OMC that lifts products under the gold for oil products, we expect that they will use a combination of the gold for oil price and the price from the other sources to determine their prices. And for that reason, we are monitoring all these companies that are lifting the products to be able to make sure that they have used the price from the gold for oil in determining their export prices. And that's why we made them to sign undertaking. The undertaking is actually more or less like a legal document to ensure that everyone is complying, so that when we do our auditing, we do our checks, we'll be able to find out those who would not have applied the gold for oil price in determine their pump price,
I
so the
see,
appropriate
but
sanctions can be taken.
anyway, how do you select the oil marketing companies who have qualified to receive this subsidized, or as you have described it, cheaper fuel under this Gold for Oil program, and are benefiting from it? I mean, in terms of these OMCs, you've talked about over 30. How did you select them, the criteria?
Yeah, so it's important we clarify this. So the very first, from the beginning of the program, there was actually no criteria. So the very first cargo, there was no criteria for OMCs who qualify to supply the product.
I see.
And therefore, the bulk import, distribution, and export companies, who are popularly called the BDCs, they were free to sell to all companies. But the challenge we had with that was that, first of all, the Association of Oil Marketing Companies came out to complain that there was some form of discrimination as to who was able to buy the product from the BDCs. And also the fact that because this product was thinly spread, could imagine a product meeting just about 30% of diesel consumption, but you have so many OMCs, you have over 100 OMCs in the country, all of them buying very small quantities. It was very difficult to really see the impact at the pump. So together with the Association of Oil Marketing Companies and the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, we agreed to come up with the criteria. So the very first criteria looked at the top 25 oil marketing companies for the supply of petrol and diesel from last year, who had a minimum of about 45 retail outlets to be able to supply, so we can see the impact at the pump. But we informed the public that as the volumes increase or as more products are being imported under the program, this criteria will be expanded to include more OMCs. So subsequently, we increase or revise this criteria to include all OMCs in the top 40 market share and with a minimum of 10 retail outlets. So that was the second time of a review of the criteria. But as we speak, this criteria has been taken off. So what we are looking at now is any OMC that is willing to supply the product allowed to do so, but we would have to cross-check and make sure that these OMCs are not indebted to the National Petroleum Authority or are in good standing with the National Petroleum Authority and are also in good standing with the Ghana Revenue Authority in terms of payment of all taxes and levies to the state. So once these OMCs are cleared like that, we make them sign the undertaking, and then they comply with the terms and conditions for supply of products under the program. So we can monitor them, as I mentioned, and make sure that they are complying and applying the prices from the gold for oil in determining their pump prices. So as we speak, there's no specific criteria. All OMCs, as long as they are good standing with the MPA and the GRA, are free to supply products under the gold for oil program.
Anyway, but let's, first of all, the end objective of all of this is the consumer. You are using our money, and our gold under this Gold for Oil program so that we can benefit by getting reduced prices of petrol and diesel. So how are you policing the system to ensure that the OMCs who are benefiting from this actually make sure the reduction trickles down to the consumer and is reflective in their prices?
So this new criteria, which I mentioned, just took off this week. But before then, we had about 32 oil marketing companies that qualified to supply. But now, since I think we communicated the new criteria 2 days ago, so BDCs are still communicating their OMCs who they are willing to supply to, and we are clearing them and adding to it. So as we speak, about 32 OMCs are cleared to participate.
I see. Abbas, thank you for your time on Ghana Tonight. And as the expected price reduction tomorrow kicks in, there's a lot more that will push for clarity on this. Ibrahim Abbas Dasunte is head of economic regulations at the National Petroleum Authority. Let's go to the Ashanti region, Kumasi specifically, because fire has ravaged a section of the Kejetia market in Kumasi. A man, Ibrahim Abubakar, was there and interacted with the fire service and some of the traders whose shops were affected.
So it's been a hectic day for personnel from the Ghana National Fire Service as they try to douse flames at the new Kejetia market. Now it's been hours since they came here trying to contain the situation. I've seen several fire tenders coming in and going out, all trying to salvage the situation. As you can see, some of the traders are also doing everything possible to salvage some of their property. So some of them have moved up there, even though it's too dangerous for them. We are unable to tell the exact number of shops that have been affected, but the fire keeps spreading. Well, the fire service personnel are doing everything possible to contain the situation.
Memane and Nema de Memani be. It's me imagine Saturday and Macquafa Yamanaba and Yamani Nash.
Mr. Waha, the Union said Jano and Musieba. Yantiman to me a day and Yamani Yafaha, near Shia and Musianida, Yafa near Shia. Yes, Rodias, oh, beyond my father Niama, Yato Mama jeans, T-shirt, and Mani grab on time. They say near my side here. Yantimi body.
My mother Munet. You want your friend, say she may bad me do ya no bra. I'm going no money for. We turn panties and boxes and entire.
The challenge is that the thick smoke is not even allowing the fire service personnel to see clearly, not to talk of moving to where the fire itself is to douse the flame. So after hours of fighting the fire, finally the fire service personnel have been able to douse the flame and the fire has been brought under control. Hopefully by tomorrow we will be able to engage personnel from the Ghana National Fire Service and get to know the preliminary cause of the fire, and we will be updating you subsequently. Management of the market has hinted of closing the facility temporarily. Ibrahim Abubakar, TV3 News, Kumasi.
That particular statement from the management, in fact, the word Ibrahim Abubakar ended, has actually been confirmed. We just received a statement from the Kumasi City Markets Limited, regrets to inform the general public of the fire incident that occurred in the Kejetia Market Complex today. The fire, which started in the late hours of the afternoon, resulted in the damage of some shops. They're grateful to the Ghana National Fire Service. Essentially, they say as a result of the incident, the market will be shut down tomorrow. That's Thursday, 16th March 2023, from morning until noon. So that is the statement from the management of the Kejetia Mall there. Signed Dufour Adai. The Ashanti region itself, we understand, has recorded about 656 fire outbreaks in the year 2022 and over 100 so far beginning this year. So that raises basic questions which we'll get into. But thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. On behalf of the rest of the team, we appreciate your company. I am Alfred Kanse. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.